shows.
I kind of figured.
I take my dog for a walk. I look at nature. Yesterday, there was a turkey in my yard yesterday. I saw this really cool feather on the ground, so I took a picture of it. I'm like, I wonder what kind of animal that was from. And then like 10 yards away,
You saw the
I heard this.
turkey.
It flew away. I don't know if it was a turkey feather. It looked like it looked like the feather of a predatory bird. I don't know.
A very big bird.
It was huge. Yeah, it was kind of, I've never seen a turkey in my yard. That was kind of fun. We also had fish in our creek, which is pretty
Really?
rare. Yeah. I mean, the water's pretty low right now, but there were fish down there. It
Nice.
was so.
You have a lot of you have deer.
Mm-hmm.
Now turkey.
Yep.
Now have you ever no bears?
You know, there have been reports of bears in
Is
our
there?
neighborhood. Yeah. Yeah, some bears, and what was the other thing that we had recently? I don't know, a lot of groundhogs.
Yeah.
They're a nuisance. All right, let's get into this because we're not talking about me, although we kind of are. But we're talking about the 5 people that you surround yourself with. So we had a quote of the day on this because that was the whole inspiration behind it.
Yes.
So who's reading the quote?
Do you? Well, you like you wanted. I can read it. I'll read it. Okay. What did I do?
Good.
with
I need
it?
a break.
Okay. I forget what our quote was. It is what the.
Row 32.
Oh gosh, look at me. I'm not prepared either.
All right, I'm reading it.
No, I got it. Oh, here we go. Okay, quote of the day is: "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with."
Yeah, which is from Jim Rohn,
Yes.
who's pretty
Yeah.
famous in the self-help, personal development space, and that was the motivation behind the show because it's a really interesting quote, but in a way, I think it's old. Like I don't know how old. It's probably not older than I am.
Yeah.
But it's somewhat outdated.
Yeah.
So the lesson behind it is important. That it's important who you surround yourself with. But what we're going to talk about today is how it's actually so much more than that. It's more than just the people you surround yourself with. We're going to talk about that.
Well, I
but
think
we're going to talk about a bunch of other
who you
stuff too.
spend the most time with, you start to take on some of their beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
the mindset.
Yep.
You take on. Hopefully, you are spending time with people that you inspire to be like, right?
Yeah, or that lift you up or encourage you or
Yes,
support you.
yes.
Yeah, and I think it's too easy now to get into communities, into groups, into friend groups, into whatever happy hour or your country club or whatever it is, where a lot of human beings have that negativity bias. They want to
Right.
complain about how
Yes.
bad things are, and it's very easy for the group
get
that
in the
surrounds
same-
you to throw the pity party.
Yep.
And I'm here to cancel that party.
Right.
Like
You
that-
want to surround yourself with people that'll tell you the truth, that'll help you to do better. It's very easy to surround yourself with people that'll make you stay in the same spot because a
Yeah.
lot of times they don't want to grow either.
Yeah.
So
Jackie and I were just talking about this because there's I saw another quote the other day that said, if you want things to go as planned, don't start a business. and she and I run a business together. So it often becomes a topic at home of like what's going on. And we've gotten really, really good at having these conversations. It's difficult enough running a business, but running a business with your spouse brings a whole new set of challenges to it. And we've gotten really good at saying like, what is it that you need right now? Like,
Yeah.
do you just need to vent?
Yeah.
Or do you need me to sort of straighten you out and tell you that you're telling stories to yourself? Or do you need me to come up with ideas? Like, what is it that you're looking for from me? Because if Jackie comes to me, or I'll flip it around. If I come to Jackie and I'm venting about something and she immediately jumps into solutions, it's like, whoa, I don't feel like you're listening to me. But if she says, well, what do you need? You just need me to listen, or do you want me to come up with ideas? Then we can have a more constructive conversation around it. So I'm fortunate that one of the 5 people I surround myself with is my best friend and business partner. But I think here's where this is interesting to me, is because I believe when this, and I don't know that it was actually Jim Rohn that said this quote, but it was attributed to him, that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I believe that quote originated in a world where there was more in-person social interaction.
yeah.
People were spending more time at the club, at the bar, out golfing, at whatever activities. Like when I was, and I don't know if it's just me getting old and this is the way that life works, or if this is it's probably the way that society has changed. Plus COVID kind of threw some fuel on that fire of really isolating and separating people. But like when I was a kid in Erie, there were like softball leagues for adults. right? And baseball leagues, and there's still some men's hockey teams, but it's way smaller than it used to be. Like there used to be so many activities and so much stuff to do. And I think what it is now, there's statistics that show the average work week is longer now than it used to be.
Okay.
And maybe that's eating into the activities and things like that. Because I look at the stuff that I have going on in my life, and you were telling me I was distracted before the show, and it's like, yeah, like I'm pretty diligent about my calendar. I'm pretty diligent with how I spend my time, but I got a lot of stuff going on right now. And like my parents took Penny for an overnight a couple days ago, which was awesome. Like that was it was nice to have a little bit of break, and it was one less thing to worry about. But yeah, once you factor in kids' activities and all the stuff that's going on, it's really hard to have social interactions. Like,
well, yeah, especially when the weekend comes, you're like, no.
Tired. For the intro, yeah. I think everybody has become more introverted too.
Yes.
But the flip side of that is we're still consuming a lot of other people's thoughts and opinions
through now social media,
every channel,
and that's why I think we don't need to catch up with our friends or our family as much, because we can see all their lives on social media. So you're still, like I said, you're still consuming all of the things that other people are putting out there.
But it's also way more filtered.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the things people want.
Yeah, I tend to post more positive things.
Yes.
And then you get those people on your feed who are like, I don't want to talk about it, but I could really use your thoughts and prayers right now. Like, okay. Like another invitation to the pity party. Right?
Yeah.
And everybody, what's wrong? And you can handle this. But they don't really mean it because they don't even know what's going on. So I think that's really important, because looking at like the 5 people that you spend the most time with may not even be people that you know, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Oh.
It could be, the influencers. It could be the people on TV, the podcast hosts, the really handsome radio show hosts who drive in late every Wednesday morning to their radio show. So
just making it on time.
Yeah. So I think that's really important, that like it's completely different now, because it is so much easier to hear more of other people's voices and thoughts and opinions on things. It used to be if you wanted someone's opinion, I believe that the news used to be more objective than it is now, although I wasn't alive 50 years ago to fact check that. But that is my belief. I believe it is intentionally more opinion-based and more polarizing now than it used to be. But generally speaking, if you wanted an opinion, you would go to the newspaper, which would come out, whatever, daily or weekly or however often your journalist wrote an opinion piece, and it would say right at the top, this is an opinion.
Yeah.
And now people share those opinions as facts, and it's very easy to buy into their stories and their BS, and it really has
their beliefs. Yeah,
it really has an impact on you. So we were talking as we were preparing for this show about like coaching programs, and some of the benefit of that, because a lot of those influencers, a lot of those content creators that are out there, many of them offer coaching programs, and some of them are one-on-one, but many of them also offer typically a lower ticket, like group coaching package, right? So you can get 50 people on a Zoom meeting, or 15 people on a Zoom meeting, or 500, depending on how big the group is. And you get access to these people at a different level than you do when you're just listening to their podcast or watching the reels or whatever it is. And it's interesting because I see how people sell those programs, and I've done them too. We've done group coaching programs, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit later. But when they sell these programs, they talk about their expertise and their experience, which sometimes they have and sometimes they don't. And they give very like logical reasons to join the program, and they talk about all the offerings. We're gonna have our weekly calls, and we're gonna have our Facebook group or our school community or WhatsApp chat or whatever it is. And that's how they sell these things. But the reality is people stay in those programs and renew those programs because of the community of the other members.
Because they found people that are like-minded.
Yes.
That are going through or the same things they are having the same experiences, or thinking the same thoughts and the same issues and the same problems. And it's outside probably of their normal group.
So I have a friend in Chicago, Mario, who twice a year hosts a mastermind. Yeah. And he invites him a whole bunch of people, and whatever, 15 or 20 show up, and he keeps tweaking the structure of it. Now they bring in like a professional speaker. That one of the ones I went to recently, Jeb Blunt was there, who's a really famous author. Like if you walk through an airport and you walk by the bookstore, there's always a lot of business books there.
Okay.
When we were, I don't even remember what airport it was. Might have been Cleveland, but the bookshelf out in front of the bookstore had 6 of his books on it, right? And that guy came and spoke at one of these events. And it's really funny because into this group, 75% of us knew each other before we joined. Yeah. But we say, like, the only way that we actually commit to spending, like, these are friends and business colleagues and clients. The only way that we actually spend time together is to write a check to Mario for the event that he hosts and book a plane and fly across the country and hang out for a few days. Yeah. Otherwise, we wouldn't be committed to it. Yeah. It's really, really interesting. But I think there's also a really important lesson there that there's a couple of important lessons there, but as you become more successful, it should be harder to have access to you. Yeah. Right. And part of it is there's increased demand for your time. Mm-hmm. More people want to hang out with me and talk to me now than 20 years ago. Right. Right. So there's some scarcity there because there's so much more demand for the time. So I think that's a really important lesson. But also, I believe that if you're going to get access to successful people, like real access, like one-on-one or in a small group setting, not just listening to their radio show or podcast or watching their videos online, they actually want you to pay for it, not necessarily because they make a whole bunch of money doing it, but because they want to make sure that you're legit enough to have access to them, right? So the one of the early high ticket programs that I joined was $1,000 a week for I think it was a 1 or 2 hour weekly coaching call with Bob Proctor. And it was a big group. I mean, there was hundreds of people that they would break us up into small groups. But I mean, it's a 6-month program. So 26 weeks at $1,000 a week is $26,000. Well, you know that group is going to have a certain type of person in it, or someone who has attained a certain level of success that I'm not going to get if I go down to the bar on the corner of my neighborhood. Right. Right. Okay, so we've talked about that a little bit, and we've talked on this show before about a lot of the influencers that we like, a lot of the coaches that we like, and it was interesting to me because we talk a lot about Andy Frisella, we talk a lot about Ed Milet, and David Nagel and all those guys, but this event that I was at, probably a little over a month ago now in St. Louis, where I got to spend time with Andy and Ed. Yes, we had dinner one night at Andy's farm, which is really cool, and he has a tank there. Yeah. Which there's a day in the life video of him on YouTube, and he's shooting stuff with the tank. And I get there and have a couple drinks and I'm smoking a cigar, and I'm like, Andy, I gotta drive that tank. It didn't happen.
I was gonna say, I think
but
I said no.
But next time. But I was asking them, like, where do you get your, like, these guys are worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and they employ hundreds and hundreds of people and do really cool, important stuff and change people's lives. Yeah. And I said, well, where do you, like, they don't stop learning.
I was just going to say that you don't stop.
Yeah. They're constantly consuming. Yep. They're reading books, they're listening to the podcast, but I said, but where are you getting it? Like, those guys are
who's above you, right?
Yeah. Yep. So I asked him, like, where do you go? And Andy said, Jeff Bezos. It's like, all right, like that's a whole other level. Like, if you're getting advice from Jeff Bezos, or he was joking, and I'm gonna forget the name, but the co-founder of Apple, I'm totally drawing a blank on his name, not Steve Jobs, the other guy, but like, he has his phone number, right? And then he told a really funny story about Gary Vee, and he said, anytime I don't listen to Gary Vee, I get it wrong. And every time I listen to Gary Vee, I get it right. Right. So that was kind of cool to see these guys who are like levels above where I am. Yeah. Getting advice from people that they look at as levels above them. But those are the people that they're surrounding themselves with.
And they keep evolving. I'm sure at some point they started here. Right? Yep. They started, and there was their mentor or whoever they were listening to, and then they get to that level, and then they keep going. And so it's funny because you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. That has probably changed for them over the years.
Oh, 100%.
Over and over and over again
100%.
in order to grow. So it's like you outgrow that average of people,
which
as
can
well.
be really difficult.
Yes, you
And,
gotta-
basically limiting or in some cases eliminating relationships.
Yeah.
Because you've outgrown that person can be really difficult.
I think that's sometimes why people get stuck. It's hard to let go of that group or those people
Yep.
in order to go to the next.
We've seen this on our personal development journey which started a little over 5 years ago, probably, like really in earnest. And I especially pay attention to married couples because those are people that I
Yeah.
have something in common with. And it's really interesting to watch those journeys, especially over really such a long period of time now, where sometimes, in some cases, the couples are attending the events together and they're working on stuff together and they grow together. And then there's other instances where maybe only one spouse is showing up to these events
Yeah.
and being in these communities and learning these things and trying to improve themselves. And in those cases, the couples grow apart, right? The husband, for example, will be perfectly happy where he is, or at least say he's perfectly happy. And the other spouse will be, I'm going to say, aspiring for more, which is funny because that's Louis Giramita's old podcast. He was a guest on our show.
Yes.
But the other spouse will be aspiring for more, and they grow apart. Mm-hmm. And that, I feel badly for the spouse that gets left behind, but I feel happy for the spouse that is achieving the things that they want
Yeah.
to achieve. So there's some silver lining there. But then there's a third category where they both just stop growing
Yeah.
and they both become stagnant because one of them holds the other spouse back. And that bums me out because there's someone there that has the awareness that they want more, but they're willing to give that up for someone who isn't willing to grow along with them.
Yeah.
And it's especially tough in the marriage situation because marriage is marriage, right? And you want to see those things last, but it also happens with other family members. It happens with friends. It
Yeah.
happens with employees that you can grow together, you can grow apart, or you can not grow at all.
Yeah.
And that's a really difficult decision for people to make. I prefer to be around people that would choose one of the two growth options.
Yes.
Preferably the one where they're growing together.
Yeah.
And that's actually something that Jackie and I have been reflecting on recently is like the amount of growth that we've had together, the stuff that we deal with now. It was really interesting. Talking about social interactions. We went to the Erie Club member picnic last Thursday. So for those of you not from Erie, it's like, the private club, not a golf course, but really nice restaurant in town. And once a year they do an annual picnic at Waldemere,
Yes.
the amusement park.
I've been once.
And they sell 1,500 tickets to this thing, and it's steak and lobsters and 1,500 heavy hitters in Erie. And it's an election year, so there's a bunch of politicians there too, wearing their shirts and shaking hands. And there wasn't enough hand sanitizer in the facility for me to deal with that. But
you don't like touching anyone anyway.
especially politicians. So, but it was interesting because, Jackie and I, it was basically a date for us.
Yeah.
So we had to like force ourselves to interact with other people that we may only see. My friend Jason was in town. I only see him at this event
Yeah.
maybe like every other year, right? But it was really fun walking around, and it was really inflated our egos because we had a whole bunch of people come up to us that were just like, "You guys are so inspiring. Like what you guys are doing is so cool. We love to see it. It's really," and it was nice to get some of that feedback.
Yeah.
But it was also a good reminder of the amount of growth that we've seen
Yeah.
over time, and also really nice to know, like in that same period of time, we have ended a lot of relationships, either voluntarily or involuntarily. Some people just remove themselves from your lives. So it was really nice to hear that there are people out there that are like, it's more than the like on social media. It's more than the quick text of, "Hey, you're doing a great job." But it was like really genuine. Like you guys inspire us.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to hear. So we've talked a little bit about the people that you surround yourself with and how it expands beyond the people that you actually spend time with.
Yes.
And we've talked about the stuff that you're consuming, whether it's news or social media or podcasts or whatever, things like that. But I think it's also important to pay attention to all of the other aspects of your environment.
Yeah.
Which is the part of this show that we didn't really talk about in preparation all that much, but it really got me thinking. So you and I have had conversations about my standards, right? And we've had conversations about my goals. So for those of you new to the concept, your goals are what you aspire to, but your standards are the bare minimum that you will accept.
Yes.
And I think it's Tony Robbins who says something like, when your goals become your standards, that's when you really up level, right?
Yeah.
So it used to be my goal was to fly first class, right? If I could do it, and if I had the money, and if it was a really long trip, I would do it. But if it was a short trip, I wouldn't. But now it's kind of become a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
Like, other than that one time Royce and I were stuck in Charlotte and had to get to Miami, and I booked a flight on Spirit, which got canceled anyway. Like, I'm going to fly first class.
Yeah.
That is my standard. I will not accept anything less than that. But my goal is flying private.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can't do it every time. I don't have the money for it. Sometimes I just don't believe it's worth it in some circumstances. But generally speaking, that is my goal.
Yeah.
My standard is that I'm going to have a clean house, right? I'm not going to accept laundry all over the floor and every freaking day, the dog toys that the dogs shred and dishes sitting in the sink. Like, that is below my standard. That's not my goal.
Right.
I won't accept anything less than that. So we've got a housekeeper that helps maintain that. But on the other hand, it is my goal and not my standard to have the nice tile in our kitchen, right? We got a couple tiles that are cracked. Well, I'm living with that right now. It's not my goal, but it at least meets my standard. The floor looks nice, but there's cracks in these tiles, right? And I've gone through an exercise where I actually write out my goals and my standards for so many different aspects of my life. And this is actually something that I think is really important for today's show, and this is why I wanted to talk about this, because I wanted. So
are you saying standards are what you'll accept, goals are what you want?
Yes.
Okay.
So when Jackie and I travel, or when we were in Boston a couple weeks ago, I will not do like the base level Uber, like the Uber X or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want some dude picking me up in his stinky Kia and driving me where I'm trying to get. Like, that's below my. I would rather walk than get in a stinky Kia.
Yeah.
Right. But I can do the.
And now you don't say this to be arrogant. It is a mindset that you have that your standards allow you to live the life that you want to live. So if you want to see yourself in this, if you want to upgrade your life, if you want to grow, you need to live a life like that. So it's not that you're saying, I think you're below me because you drive a stinky Kia. It's, I want to be at this part of my life, so my standards are here. And for me, that's what I need.
Let me give you a nicer example, even though I don't want to. Everyone's standard is to eat.
Yes.
Because you have to do that to survive.
Yes.
My standard is to eat pretty healthy, right? Like, it's not a lot of French fries. It's not a lot of fast food. It is like, I'm tracking my macros every day. I'm paying attention to what I consume. And it's also, I mean, there's some balance too, right? I had some ice cream last night, frozen yogurt, but like what I eat, I believe that if you see someone eating, I'm going to get sued. If you see someone eating a Tim Hortons breakfast sandwich and donut every single day, they're probably not super successful, right? First of all, Tim Hortons is the worst. Here we go.
Oh boy.
Because you get the meal, right? And it's the sandwich, and you get the coffee, and then you can pick a side, so a donut, a muffin, hash browns, whatever. Well, Boston cream donuts are the best, objectively. And Tim Hortons does this thing where they put the breakfast sandwich and the donut in the same freaking bag. So the sandwich melts the chocolate off the donut and ruins your entire day. Tim Hortons, get it together. Anyway, if
you're going to get free donuts.
They're Canadian. They'll probably apologize to me. And I don't want free donuts because the friggin' chocolate's going to melt off of it. All right. But let's look at the flip side of that. If you're the type of person that has, say, meal prepped overnight oats for the week, or you're eating egg whites and fruit, don't you believe that in other aspects of that person's life, they're probably more successful?
Yeah.
Because they have a standard.
Well, it's taking the time to do something better than just the average of what you would normally. It's very easy to grab that unhealthy thing for breakfast as opposed to the night before to make the overnight
Let's
oats.
talk about that.
Okay.
Let's talk about that. We're getting ahead. I want to go through other categories of standards, but yes, this is really important. Any type of growth or up-leveling requires intention, right?
And action.
Yes, that's good. We should. Oh, let's shoot that again, because that would be a good clip. No, just kidding. So any level of growth, any level of success requires intention and action, or intentional action. So it doesn't happen by accident, right?
Correct.
You were telling me earlier today, well, it gets better and it turns around, and it's like, yeah, not if I just sit there though.
Correct.
Like, I've got to push this rock up this mountain. So if I want to get in better shape, I've got to go to the gym. And chances are, if I'm going to the gym, I got to do harder and harder stuff and lift heavier weights, or go on the whatever cardio equipment for longer and longer. And it's because if you're going up a level, if you're breaking through a level or breaking through a ceiling and going to another level, it's very easy to fall back to your old habits. Actually, that would be falling back to your standards, right? So another really important aspect of your environment is how much friction do you eliminate from the things that you want. So for me, when I used to work with a personal trainer in person, it was like a 20-minute drive for me, which meant I had to get up, I had to brush my teeth early because I was going to interact with human beings, and get clothes on and drive. And like, especially if it's winter, and drive 20 minutes and be there at 5:30 in the morning, and then have this punk 20-something-year-old former college wrestler make me do things I didn't want to do. and then I gotta drive home and shower and get dressed, right?
Yeah.
And it's now in our current house, we have the workout room with like the rubber floors and all of the equipment. So I can literally roll out of bed and be in the gym in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I've eliminated that friction from my life.
Yeah.
And I'm in way better shape because of it, right? When we're talking about food, how easy is it to grab the junk food from the closet? So this was funny yesterday. We've got all the healthy stuff on the lower shelves, and it's probably like leftover Halloween candy at this point on the top shelf.
Yeah.
So like none of us can reach it given our natural height. We have to grab a stool or a ladder
to cause an obstacle
to grab the junk
to
food.
get the
But if the junk food was front and center and the healthy food was out of the way, what do you think we're going to grab? Right?
Correct.
So you have to make it easier on yourself.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I think those are both really good examples, but it's also true for your working environment. We've talked about this the last couple weeks. I have been on fire at work the last few weeks. I got 6 of my 5 power list items done yesterday. I was done by 2 p.m.
Nice.
And the way the power list works is I could have gone home at that point and been really accomplished for the day. But I got some other stuff done. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Right? But I've created an environment with no distractions. I've created an environment where I sit down to work, I am getting work done. So I've got items crossed off my list before I even leave the house, because I can sit down at my desk and it's nothing but me and my computer and just crank it out, or the notebook, or whatever it is that I'm working on. So having that environment is super important. And it's also for those habitual ongoing things. Make it easy to follow a good diet.
Yeah.
Meal prep is a good way to do that. Make it easy to work out and reduce that friction. Make it easy to be productive and get work done, because any hurdles and any speed bumps that you put in front of yourself are either going to stop you or slow you down.
Correct.
But there's also like the one-off stuff where your environment is important. And we just did this last Friday.
Yeah.
What did we do last Friday?
Last Friday we did an off-site all-day strategy session work.
We worked on Pennywise.
Yeah.
We reviewed our offers. We came up with responses and videos for some common questions that we get. We talked about how that business is going to look in the future.
And we did it out of the office.
Where do we go?
We went to your house.
Which is an inspiring environment.
Yes, it's in the woods, and it's calm, and it's peaceful, and there was some great candle burning. It's like cedar something. I don't know what it was.
And Diane showed up with a charcuterie board.
Oh my, yeah, which was even better.
That's going to be my new standard. Charcuterie has been the goal for meetings. Now it's becoming
before
the standard.
It used to be like the cereal bars and yogurt and stuff, but Diane showed up with this amazing cheese and meat board, and Chrissy was stocking drinks, and so you got in the environment allowed your mindset to be at ease, to be thinking about the things that we needed to think about.
We were focused.
Yeah.
There was no distractions. We were inspired, and we could be very creative.
Yes.
And we solved issues that will make us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Now listen, in the office, not that the office is not a great setting, but we would have been in the conference room. We would have been hearing the doorbell. We would have been hearing the phone ringing. We would have been seeing people coming and getting drinks. or coffee, and our snacks would have been our normal snacks that we had. And it would have been, you would have been in that distraction work environment, which would have probably allowed us to be focusing on other things than what we were truly supposed to be focusing on. And I think that's the thing, is that sometimes you have to change that environment in order to accomplish the things that you need to. And it's not always going to be in the same place.
And again, it requires intentional
Yes.
effort, intentional action
Yeah.
to make that happen. It has to, maybe the word isn't intentional. Maybe it's examined. Like, you actually have to think about it.
Where am I going to have the best, where am I going to accomplish the most?
Yeah.
Right? You had to think about that. Like, where was going to be the best place for that meeting to occur, where we were going to, because we had a lot to get through. This was a, like, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Like, we had a lot of things to cover in that time period. And I think you understood that that was not going to happen in the office
in
environment.
a different environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Can I tell you a funny story?
Yes.
Well, it's not funny, but it's informative.
Okay.
So we did the book launch and sold a whole bunch of books. Amazon bestseller. Everything your kids wish you knew about owning a business. And as part of that launch, we did some giveaways, right? So we gave up some swag from our businesses, and then I gave away a free 1-hour coaching session with actually, was a prior client of the law firm.
Yeah.
And wanted some coaching help, and he's got a growing, successful law firm himself. And we were talking about environment. And part of the reason was we were both on Zoom, which, is like being, mine is set up like a, I don't know, like a stage, right? Everything that's out of the scene is less appealing than the stuff that's on camera.
Yeah.
But we were talking about, this guy's about my age, maybe a little bit younger, and he said when he got his first bonus at the first law firm that he worked at, he went and bought one of those huge rear projection televisions. Like, I had one when I was in college. Right?
Yeah.
It was like it was probably a 40 or 50 inch TV that we would play Super Smash Brothers on Nintendo GameCube. But anyway, he got his first bonus when he was a lawyer, and he went out and bought one of those TVs. And I mean, I don't. It's been years since they've sold TVs like that, right? And now you can buy. It even used to be that if you went and bought a plasma TV, you would, like if you got a big one, you needed two people to carry that thing. And now, like, we have a 60-inch TV in our basement, and I can hang that thing on the wall by myself. But he said a couple of years ago this TV died, and they just left it in the corner of their living room.
Oh.
And I feel like everybody's about to have a physical reaction to the end of this story. So listen closely. So he was telling me that he was working on environmental things. He was actually working with Vida, who's our time management consultant, and we have a webinar coming up with her. I'm going to post that link in the comments to this show. That's on August 8th. So 8 days from now, we're doing a time management and productivity seminar for free, and it's actually new lessons. It's stuff we've never taught. But he as part of this, he's cleaning up his goals, he's cleaning up his calendar, he's cleaning up his to-do list. And then he moved into his physical space, and he organized his office because she gives tips on how to do that. Well, he and his wife got a dumpster, and they got rid of that TV that's been sitting in their living room for years. And just picture that. Picture the living room. Picture the giant, like, wooden box television, massive rear projection thing for years. Years, he said, in his living room. And then they got rid of it. Don't you feel lighter just hearing that story? Like, that stuff like that actually does create weight on you and on your life. And yes, there's the physical side of it. We've talked about it with friends and what you consume, but that the stuff in your life has weight on you.
Yeah.
And we've all done that thing where we do something or get rid of something or move on and suddenly feel lighter and freer. Now imagine if more aspects of your life were like that.
Yeah.
If more aspects of your life were less friction and were easier to accomplish. And one of the ways to reduce friction is to pay attention to the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Because you don't realize you take on the behaviors, thoughts, problems, stress, negativity of others.
Maybe you realize it, but you don't examine the full extent of the weight that it has on you.
Yeah.
So really, really important stuff. Man, there was a bunch of stuff that I said that we wanted to come back to, but let's talk a little bit more about just some different categories of examining what your goals are and what your standards are. Because that was what I was going to say too, is for us, the people that we surround ourselves with, like that's why we lead off in our recruiting with culture fit first. I don't need negative, pessimistic, doom and gloom, tell me all the reasons that it won't work people in my life.
Yeah.
I need people that say, yeah, this is really cool. Let's go figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
Knowing it's not going to go according to plan, knowing it's going to be difficult, let's go do it.
Yeah.
And that's a minority of people that have that type of attitude, but that's why we hire for that first.
I have a funny story on standards.
All right, let's hear it.
So remember, how we talked about my standard with restaurants, how that changed,
Oh yeah.
like Peachtree compared
Yeah, so
and chain restaurants compared to.
You told me your goal was to not go to restaurants on Peach Street anymore, which because generally speaking, that's the chain restaurants, right? Like all the
chain restaurants, or just anything that's not like doesn't have, which now those standards have even grown of. There's even some restaurants now that aren't on Peach Street, but that I don't want to go to because I would rather be sitting now in somewhere like the Cork or Bar Ronin, or like I don't want to even go to like. I'm not naming any. Never mind. I'm not
well, we can drop names because we did find there are exceptions to the Peach Street rule.
Yeah.
That Firestones is really, really
yes,
good.
Like somewhere like that. Yes.
Muscoozy just moved into the mall, which is
But then there's like other ones, remain nameless, but that they're not on that level. So, so these are my standards now.
Examine. I like it.
Going on a date. My standards now
Listen
for where
closely, gents. Listen
to where
up.
I'm going.
Take notes.
Is now also I'm thinking about where I'm eating, and I suggest going one place, which is where my standards are, and this person suggests going somewhere else, which is not where I wanted to go.
That's an interesting move too, because like, I haven't dated in a while.
Yeah.
Like in that, I still go on plenty of dates with Jackie, but like, let's say you're gonna go to a chain restaurant and it's gonna cost you $50, and you go to a nice restaurant and it's gonna cost you $100. Like, is it really not worth that difference?
Yeah, it's worth the difference because that was it for me. That
standards.
That right, and from that point on, I realized I based that restaurant choice on every other aspect of that person's life, and then I started. Okay, I see why you chose this place, because now I see how you're dressing and I see what the topics of conversation that you want to talk about. So that choice led me to that this person was not at the level that I was at. And
do you still go for the free dinner though?
What?
On the date to the below your standard restaurant?
Well, I went to the, I went.
So you had conflicting standards, because your standard is I don't want to go to those restaurants, but your other standard is I don't want to come off as rude.
Right.
And if you just said, you know what, if you're taking me, I'll say it. If you're taking me, this will be funny. If you're taking me to Applebee's, I'd rather not go on the date, which is hilarious because Jackie and I, our first date, we went to Applebee's, but we're older now and lives are different. But I think that's.
Well, I was telling so you got it. You got it when I told you the story. You understood. Yep. Okay. But I was telling this story to someone else. They're like, oh, how's the date? And I'm like, they took me to, and so that's done. And they looked at me so appalled at me saying that. And then I'm like, oh, you don't understand. You don't understand that that's not someone I want to surround myself with. That's not somebody that's going to help me grow or go to the next level. Because if it was somebody that would have chosen the place that I wanted to go, I would have realized we are probably on the same mindset, probably want to surround ourselves with the same people, probably are going to have the same topic of conversations. And I realized the person I was telling this story to just did not get that. And so it was
here's the analogy, because we've actually come full circle in the first 46 minutes of this radio show on exactly this. Is I told you my standard for flying first class.
Yeah.
And you said, well, let's talk about something that isn't as offensive. You didn't use the word offensive, but that was the gist, right? Like, let's talk about something that more people can relate to. So we talk about diet and exercise, because that's an easier conversation to have. But now you're saying, well, restaurants, I have a standard.
Yeah.
And that's offensive to other people.
Yes.
And that's part of the challenge here, is like, you're not a jerk.
Yeah.
You just have standards.
Yeah.
There are things below which you won't accept. And in fact, everyone has standards. it's just so many of them are low or unexamined, or they haven't really given it any thought. And I think that's what makes this difficult is I have thought about and established a standard for the way that I travel. Most people haven't. Most people's standard is what's the cheapest option.
Yeah.
Right. I will drive 2 hours to Cleveland and have 2 layovers and then get to Florida, right? Or whatever it is. I've done this in so many different aspects of my life that I'm pretty comfortable with it. Other people do have standards. You know, they go car shopping, and even if they're not buying a nice car, they at least know maybe some features that they want or the color that they want to have. Or
we did this car shopping with the sunroof.
Exactly. Yeah, you needed a sunroof.
Yeah.
Or you can do this with the clothes that you wear, right? Or you can do this with, I don't know, maybe even the job that you have. There's certain jobs that you wouldn't do, or that you wouldn't stoop so low as to handle those jobs. And I think people have them, but I think they're afraid to say them out loud because they are going to be viewed as a jerk. But that's when we come back to some of our previous shows about not caring about what people think about you. So let's talk about some of these other categories just to raise awareness on this, right? We talked about diet and exercise. We've talked a lot about the car that you drive.
Where you eat.
Where you eat, yeah. But your appearance, right? Yep. There are people that won't leave the house without putting on makeup. A bunch of people just formed a judgment about them. But if they've examined that and decided that's how they want to do it, fine, right? There are other people that won't leave the house without a tie on. Actually, Donald Trump does this. I feel like I read The Art of the Deal back before he became so polarizing, and like he wears a suit every day except when he goes golfing. Then he wears a polo shirt, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's ever seen Donald Trump in a t-shirt, right? So your appearance, what you wear, or just physically your appearance, like there's that number on the scale, or that pair of jeans that I'm not going to go beyond that. Like that's when I'm going to make some changes.
Yeah.
Right. The quantity and quality of time that you spend with your spouse or your friends or your family. And this is important because it's quality and quantity. So many people think it's just I got to spend more time with my kids. I got to spend more time with my family. But it turns out if it's better quality time, your kids are actually happy when you kind of leave them alone some of the times because you're not dragging them around to crap that
especially teenagers
that they don't want. Yes, especially teenagers, right?
They appreciate you leaving them alone.
Yep. We talked about the house, right? Like how clean it needs to be, what I want to have in the house when it comes to the way things are organized, the way things are put away, even the materials and the finish, right? Like I don't want linoleum floors. I won't do that.
When I was looking for a house, when I was going to be buying a house, one of my a house that I had rented before, I remember that the kitchen and the bathroom and where you walked in, it was linoleum. And I hated it. I hated it. And I'm like, if I ever own a house, I am not having linoleum anywhere in this house. So when I was looking at this house, it had the wood floors, and then it had the tile where you walked in, and the bathroom had the wood floors. And I'm like, okay, good. Like I was not going to look, as if there was linoleum, I was not looking at it. And I guess at the time I didn't realize like that was like now a standard of mine. I wasn't.
Well, that's it.
Because
You
I
didn't
attributed
examine
that to where I was at that time in that house. That's where I could be, right? That's what and I wanted something better. If you have linoleum, you're not bad. It's just not my standard.
Right. Exactly. Which is fine. Like nobody's passing judgment on any of these. Other people have flown first class and said, I don't need that.
Yeah.
Fine. Other people have test driven a Porsche and said, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I did it with the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, or not the Rubicon, but the Gladiator, the Jeep truck, right? They looked cool. I thought I wanted one. And then I test drove it and said, nope, this drives like a Jeep.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's a super cool car for other people if they're happy with it. It's also interesting when you move, or even when you don't move, but like the decor in your home. Like I'm still at that age where I got stuff my parents handed down to me. I got stuff that I bought, secondhand. And when we moved, it was a good opportunity to really sort through a lot of that stuff, but also just being in the house now, like taking an inventory. So this isn't necessarily decor related, but it is standard related to the house. In one of our bathrooms, there's no sink. Like the vanity is there, but the sinks were never installed. So it's just a piece of plywood. And until we get what we want in that space, I will go without a sink because there's a standard for what we want to have there. And it's something that we'll use every single day once it's put in there. So I want to make sure that it's especially nice. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to interact with this thing on the daily. So I would rather go without than have something I don't want.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point of standards, right? Like
Yeah.
you clear that space. If you don't like the coverings on your window, don't wait to buy new ones. Just get rid of the ones that you have.
Yeah.
And that's, I think they call it the vacuum law of prosperity too. Like you're creating space for the thing that you really do want. So, all right, other categories, your social life, your car, how much time you take off from work and how you spend that time.
Yeah.
Right. You should be hanging out with 5 people that inspire you or
Right.
going to inspiring things or learning new things. But where you vacation, the clothes that
Yeah.
you wear, where you go out to eat. How about, here's a really good one. The clients you work with.
Yes. You have avatar clients.
Yes, we rank
We have-
our clients
yeah.
A, B, C, D, E, F.
Yes.
And if you're a D, and E, and F client, you better step up or step out. And we've done that. And I don't know that I've ever regretted firing a client. Maybe I have, but I can't. Nobody comes to mind right now. But yeah, I mean, if you're working with those negative, miserable, pessimistic clients, it's going to affect all of your other clients. So we have decided we would rather not have you as our client than have you as a client and have your money, but all the negative crap that we have to put up
Yeah.
with for that. And that, man, that is the most empowering thing as a business owner, to be able to tell a current client or a potential client, I just don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
I don't think you're a good
You
fit.
might not be a good fit.
You can message it however you want to message it so you don't come across as a jerk, but the feeling of, oh man, that's not going to be in my life anymore. It's like getting rid of that TV that's sitting in your living room for
Yeah.
3 years. It makes you lighter.
Think about that with the people you're around. Are they the box TV in your life?
That's
that
it,
you
right?
need
That's
to get rid
that's the
of?
whole point of this. It's who and what is influencing you in ways that you don't even realize.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole point of today's show. I mean, so I was listening yesterday to this radio station, and I learned this morning it was a replay. It wasn't live, but Joel was talking about how in this studio in downtown Erie, they have a front row seat to all the revitalization that's happening. Right? Like I can look across the street and see a brand new,
Yeah.
really cool building with the climbing gym and all the really nice apartments and all that stuff. I can see the nice restaurant across the street, and it would be a different vibe for this show and for his show, which is a lot more Erie focused than ours, if they were not downtown or if they were in some windowless basement studio. But this environment, albeit a bit small, is a really great environment for being inspired and being excited about the things that are happening in the world. Because if there's growth and development happening here,
Right in front of
we
you.
know it's happening other
Yeah.
places, and it's great to be a part of that. And when we leave here, we can go left or right and go to a really cool coffee shop that just a few years ago, neither of those would have existed.
Right.
Right. So it's really important. We could, in theory, every Wednesday morning, this would actually ensure I'm on time, we could do this over Zoom.
Yes.
Like we could both dial in remotely and do this show every single week. But there's something different about
Yeah,
being
it's
here.
not the same.
No, it's not the same. The show is better because we are here in person.
Yeah. And I enjoy the anxiety of wondering if you're going to show up on time. So it really gets me inspired.
We're gonna
for
jinx
the
it. It hasn't
day.
happened yet. I've never
It was
been
close the one day, and Jewel and I are preparing to do this on our own.
We're gonna have like the parachute pulling ripcord of like, well, Adam got pulled over, so
Yes.
we got to buy 20 minutes somehow. What do you think you would talk about for 20 minutes if I wasn't here?
I could do 20 minutes on the fact that you weren't here and what probably happened. What's happening?
You would do better than that.
I would do better than
You would
that.
come up with something.
Yeah,
better than that.
I
All right.
would.
So let's go back to consuming content. Like we look for inspiration and ideas for this show, for
Mm-hmm.
example. You try to learn things to get better at your job.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that you're doing?
Well, one of the things that I did I think it was last week. Was last week when you did the talk at the library?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had things to do that night. I could have been watching reruns of Chicago PD because I'm really into that right now. But no, it was a busy week. I had a lot going on. I could have chosen 10 other things to do. But I realized you were going to cover things that I probably heard before, but I know each time that you do a speaking event or you're talking about something, I hear it in a different way.
Yep.
And that's the thing. So I realized I could sit here and do nothing or watch TV, or I could even, just probably yard work or whatever, but I'm not gaining anything out of that that's going to help me get to a different place that I wanted to be. So yeah, I'd already been in the office that day, driven home, did the stuff with the kids, and I'm like, I'm going because I know I need to hear the lesson that is going to be
You were
taught
so
today.
fired up after that too.
And I was, because you said things that I had heard before, but I heard it in a different way. And I was just like, and then I started getting ideas, and it was in that moment, I grew more than I would have had I
You know
done
what's
nothing.
funny?
So
I want to make a note of that presentation.
Yeah.
Because I've spoken at the Erie County Library a couple times on different business and legal topics. And this time they asked me to come in and talk on a business topic. And sometimes I go in and it's part of a bigger event where there's a whole bunch of speakers. But this was just me.
yeah.
And this is entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. There were 3 people there.
Yeah.
Plus you.
Yeah.
There were 4 people at this event.
But it was such a good lesson. And they
Isn't that the
all
funny thing, though?
left there. The one woman I know, like a light bulb went off in her head and you could see it when you were talking to her. And it's something she left there not ever going to forget what you said. And I guarantee was going to make changes in what she was doing for her business.
Isn't that
based
really
on
interesting, though, that if you go to an event like that and there are 3 people there, each and every one of those people got one-on-one interaction with me that made their lives better.
Yes.
And it was free.
Yes.
They didn't even have to pay for it.
Yes.
All right, we're getting towards the end. There's 2 other things I want to cover because we've been talking about this so much and we've been working on the business.
Yep.
So 2 things that we're doing about this.
Yes.
The action items are on us this week. First, for our tax strategy clients, we're going to start doing group monthly calls to teach lessons and to get our community of successful entrepreneurs interacting with each other. So this is something that we're adding to that service offering, which I'm really excited about.
Yep.
The other thing I decided to do is I ran a group coaching program at the beginning of this year for about 6 months, had a number of people in it, wrapped it up after 6 months, and I'm getting ready to relaunch that. So if you're looking for access to a community of successful, like-minded, maverick entrepreneurs, will have the opportunities.
Yep.
So great show this week. Be mindful of the fine people you surround yourself with. I believe in you.